So continuing with integers and trying to get our heads around how to deal with these. Again, the number line will be helpful for us to visualize. And let's start with now looking at what happens when you add on a negative number. Okay, so for example, when you add on a negative 2, so 9 plus a negative number, 9 plus negative 2. Remember, if you want to think about negatives, they're always going to be moving us to the left. They're always making the numbers smaller. Okay, so if we start at 9, I know that we're adding a number on, but the number you're adding on is a negative, so in a sense, that's the same as subtracting in a way. So we're going to go from 9 and we're going to take off that negative 2. They go in different directions, and so now we're left with a positive 7. Looking at a different example, what happens if we start with a negative number like negative 1 and we want to add on to it more negatives, so we want to add on a negative 6. Well, it's a negative number, so we need to think about it going to the left as well. So from negative 1 we'll add on more negative, and it will now be negative 7. So looking at this example, if we start with a positive number, this time again starting with a positive 7, and we want to add on a negative 3, well, the negative again will be going down to the left, so here we're adding on the negative 3, and that gets us to 4. So you can kind of imagine this, if you want, as 9 minus 2, or 7 minus 3. Okay, so when you've got the different signs here, the positive, and then you're adding a negative number, that's kind of the same as subtracting a positive number. So again, it's just going to make where you're at slightly smaller. It's going to move it to the left of the number line always. So adding negatives always moves you to the left of the number line. So even if we start down in the negative numbers, such as starting at negative 3, we want to add on a negative 5, well, that's just going to get more negative, right? We're adding up more negative, so it's going to move 5 down in that direction. So we count over a distance of 5, negative 5, and that'll get us to negative 8. And there's a couple of tricks to help us remember these things, if we want to think about how those are. So let's look at the hints real quick. Here we've got opposite signs. So opposite signs will make it a negative number. So here we see an opposite sign. It's plus and minus, so that in sense makes it a negative. So opposite signs, positive and negative, the number will be negative. You can change a positive and a negative right next to each other, like here, into a negative sign. So again, that's when two signs are written next to each other, negative and a positive. You will get a negative. You can replace it with a negative. So we'll look at how that looks at this example. That's 4 plus a negative 10. Again, we see two signs right next to each other, plus, minus. So plus a negative 10. We can write that as 4 minus 10. And here, 4 minus 10, so starting at 4, and because we're going to take away the 10, we have to move in the negative direction. Using up the first 4 gets us to 0, and after that there's 6 left, taking us down to negative 6. So from 4, the minus 10 gets us down to negative 6. And again, seeing that trick of a positive and a negative together, we can think about that as 5 minus 9. So starting at 5, subtracting 9 gets us down to negative 4. Tidy up the board here. So, another hint for us with opposite signs that we can think about, and with adding and subtracting negative numbers, is how would you make it colder? Right? If you wanted to make something colder, what would you add in if you wanted to make something more negative or in the colder direction, like into negative, like, ooh, freezing temperatures? What would you put into a pot of water if you wanted to make it even colder? Well, you would add a negative number. Use blue here. You would add more cold water. So we would add in a negative, and this would make it colder. But if you had a pot of water and you wanted to make it colder, and you couldn't put anything in, but you could take something out, what would you take out to make it colder? Well, you would take out a positive, and that would make it colder. So if you had a pot of water and you needed to make it colder, you could take the hot out, right? You could take out the hot. So here we want to add in cold or take out hot to make it colder or to make it more negative. And that's what's happening in this example. We're adding in a cold, we're adding in a negative. So we've gone from 5 down to -4. We've made it more negative. And following up with that little trick here, if I had a pot of water and I wanted to make it hotter, what would I add in? Well, that pot of water can only get hotter if I'm adding hot water to it. So I want to add in positive, and it's going to get positive. It's going to get hotter. And if you think about that pot of water again, and you needed to take something out of it this time and still make it hotter, so making it bigger in a sense, how do you make it bigger? How do you make it more positive? What can you take out of cold water to make it more positive? Well, what if you take out the cold water? What if you take out some of the cold from the cold water? In that case, it will also get hotter. So here, if you want to make it hotter or more positive, you're going to add hot and take out cold. So a few ways of thinking about this. You can think about it like temperatures, taking out cold or taking out heat for different tricks. Or you can think about it this way as well, which some people find simple. If the signs are the same, like a plus and a plus, it'll be a plus. If the signs are opposite, it'll be a negative. So again, same signs, plus plus will get you a plus, and a minus will also get you a plus. And the opposite signs will get you a negative. So a plus and a minus will be a negative, and a minus and a plus will also be a negative. So thinking about those tricks, let's see if we can apply them now again. Looking at the next examples, where we're actually looking at -3 minus a -10. So look at our number line back so we can see it. Oh, sorry, this one here. So starting at 3, we're going to take out a negative. So again, if you're taking out cold, the signs here are the same. It's going to get bigger. So this becomes 3 plus 6 is equal to, and now we can think about it, it's 9. So that was 3, and I need to take out a -6. So in a sense, I need to kind of flip it around, do the opposite to the negative because I'm taking it out. So I go in the opposite direction. What about this one? Starting at -2, I need to take out a -8. So again, those two signs are the same. It's going to become a positive. -2 plus 8. It'll go in the other direction. So -2 plus 8, it's going to take us all the way up to 6. -2 plus 8 will get us to 6. And here, looking at the -3 minus a -10, or -3 minus a -10, if you want to think about it that way, I see the two signs are the same, and I'm going to again write -3 plus 10. So starting at -3, I'm going to add 10 to that, so -3 up to 0 is 3, and then I need 7 more to get a total distance of 10. So I end up at 7. -6, take away a -1. Again, the signs are the same, so I'm going to say -6 plus 1. So here I'm at -6. I'm going to add 1. I get to -5. Last two examples here. 9, take away a -7. So again, the signs are the same. I can write 9 plus 7. And 9 plus 7 is going to get us to 16. Last example, a 7 take away a -4. Again, those two signs are the same, the negative and the subtraction. So 7 plus 4 will equal 11. And we'll notice with all of these examples we just did, we moved to the right. The number got bigger in a sense, so that's one thing to think about. Subtracting a negative number always moves right on the number line. So again, if the signs are the same, it'll become a positive. If the signs are opposite, like here, it will become a negative. And just makes it slightly less confusing to look at. And now you can think of 5 minus 9, and you know that you're going to the left. Like this example here, you can think of 9 now plus 7, you know you're going to the right.